Hey, it's Jack, and this video is called Is He Your Guy? Hey, welcome to the channel. If you're new here or you haven't yet subscribed, I'd like to invite you to do so. You can just hit the subscribe button and then tap the bell notification so you hear of new videos as soon as they come out. I release videos on relationships and personal growth, and this is a really awesome community to be part of, and I'd love to have you with us. So hit subscribe and then tap the bell notification so that you are up to date. All right, so this video is called Is He Your Guy? And I want to talk about one of many aspects that could give you indications as to whether someone is your guy or not. And the way that I'm approaching this is actually more by exclusion than inclusion. So I'm going to give you a criterion, and if he meets this criterion, it doesn't mean that he is your guy, right? And we could say, well, what does it mean to be your guy? And look, who knows whether long-term relationships necessarily will go the distance. My distinction, and when I talk about someone being your guy, is that you have a possibility to be in a long-term relationship with them, right? Where that long-term relationship goes, that's another video. But in this context, what I'm trying to help you do is really weed out and therefore not invest time in guys that actually are never going to be your guy, right? That they're not looking at you in that way, that the universe, life doesn't want that relationship between you two, right? It doesn't mean that you might not have a strong attraction, doesn't mean there might not be some kind of connection, but it's actually not someone that wants the role of being your partner, right? That's what we really mean, is that someone who's up for the possibility of that role. So the criterion I want to lay down is, does he want the job? Does he want that job of being your partner? Does he want the job of showing up for you? Does he want the job of taking care of you? Does he want the job of being with you, of building with you, of creating things with you, of being in your life ongoingly? Does he want that job, right? Now, I use this analogy, you might have heard me talk about it. If you wanted to go and get a job as a senior engineer at Google, you wouldn't be saying, hey, yeah, maybe I'll come in on Monday, I'll call you on Thursday, but I'm not sure if I can come in then, so you might not hear from me for a couple of weeks, right? Our big job, when we're looking at this question, does he want the job, is to really be as objective and as sober as possible, right? Because in your mind, you might be creating all sorts of excuses, rationalizations, right? Rationalization is a form of defense, by the way. It's a way of defending ourselves against the reality of what's actually going on. So you may be rationalizing, you may be making up stories and fantasies, you may be just living in false hope, right? One day he'll show up, one day he'll be different, one day he won't just disappear for 2 weeks, or, you know, have lots of contact and then suddenly kind of drop off and I don't really know where I am for several weeks. It's like, no, does he want the job of showing up consistently and ongoingly in your life? The kind of person that you might look at and say, oh, this could be someone I could partner with. Right now, in partnership, there's all sorts of issues. It doesn't always work out. There's communications challenges, there's defenses, there's wounds. You know, everything comes up when we're in a real conscious partnership with someone. But that's later. We're talking about getting up to the plate. Is this someone that you can be on the pitch with? Is this someone that you can play with? Is this someone that wants to get back up when you guys have difficulties or conflicts? Is there a sort of stickability, a resilience? Is there a come-togetherness? If those qualities aren't in place, then probably you're not dealing with a partner. Probably you're dealing with a lover. Probably you're dealing with, or possibly you're dealing with a companion. Possibly you're dealing with someone that wants to hook up with you. Possibly you're dealing with a pen pal, right? Someone that wants to have text with you and communicate with you, but doesn't really want to have real, meaningful real-time interactions and doesn't really want to be in any form of obligation to you, doesn't want to have an exclusive or monogamous or mutually obligated relationship with you, right? Those things are more the hallmark of partnerships, right? Where someone actually wants to be able to say, hey, yes, you can depend on me. Yes, you can lean into me. Yes, you can trust that I will show up. I may not do it perfectly 100% of the time, but the majority of the time, right? 80, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, when I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it and you'll notice it. And that you can start to relax into that. You can start to lean into that and that it feels good to do so. So does he want the job is just the minimum effective criterion of saying, if we've got someone that wants to be on the pitch, right? I used to play a lot of soccer at a reasonable level. And if one of the players just regularly doesn't want to be on the pitch, he doesn't want to be part of the team, right? And there might be all sorts of valid reasons for that. We could talk about it. But what we're not going to do is make excuses for it and rationalize it and imagine and pretend that it's going to be different. We might say, hey, I get it. You're overcommitted right now. You know what? Why don't you come back in 6 months? You know, or for the moment, why don't you just be a substitute because we can't rely on you? Or why don't you be the lines person, right? Or why don't you come and train with us but not show up for the matches, right? There's some other arrangement, but we don't try and pretend that this is going to be a strong person on our team that we can rely on, right? Similar sort of philosophy. You don't try and make a guy what he isn't. And it might be disappointing to you to find out that he doesn't want the job, and then your job is to be with that disappointment, as difficult and as painful as that may be, because what we don't want is that disappointment being kind of transmuted into a false narrative about who he could be, right? We want to date the present, not the future. So if we're having to create a narrative about him, rather than just being with the kind of sober edge of reality, then we're already doing ourselves a disservice, right? We don't grow by imagining that things are true and real that aren't true or real, right? We tend to grow by being with what's true and real. And if this guy is showing up inconsistently, or has actually made no overtures to you and that he actually wants the job, then why do we need to make up that story for him? Right now, we might need to take some action. We might need to say, oh, this is difficult because I'm kind of falling for this guy. So actually, I need to take a step back. I actually need to downshift the connection because I can't be in a casual orientation to this guy. I actually want more, right? And that's disappointing when one person wants more and the other person doesn't. But better to nix it at that stage and realize it than to keep investing, because I've seen this so many times. I've coached in this area a lot. It only gets more painful to downshift. It only gets more painful to have the rug pulled, right? But the rug doesn't get pulled if you're in your sobriety. The rug doesn't get pulled if you've actually not created a castle in the sky, right? A sort of fantasy about what this is. And to create that fantasy, you've had to ignore the fact that he doesn't really want the job, right? When you're ill, he doesn't really want to help you, right? He doesn't really want to meet your family, right? He doesn't really want to have 2 or 3 dates or times to get together on the calendar. He doesn't really want to move the relationship forward. He doesn't really see you as someone that is a good partner for him for whatever reason. And by the way, a lot of this stuff happens at an unconscious level, and that's also can be disappointing, but that's just part of the reality, right? Does every person get to choose who their partner is, right? At some level, you might have your shopping list, or you get to say yes to the next date, or you get to have your discernment. Of course, there is an element of that conscious choice, but there's also like, how does all that stuff get unraveled? How do you know who you're going to be drawn to or attracted to? How do you know who's going to be a good long-term partner for you? There's some of that stuff that there is a bit of a mystery, right? That's beyond our understanding. What we've just got to notice is that there, and if it's not, that we're not trying to fill in for it and create a story about it. That we're actually willing to downshift and disconnect where it serves us. And that, for most of us, is the work, right? And it's partly more hard because we tend to get in quickly and then we try and sober up, right? It's much easier to be sober on the front end, take it slower, and then I don't have to back paddle, right? It's kind of like if you were drunk, you know, and you said to someone, hey, I really love you, and maybe that was premature, right? Or I've even had situations where guys make marriage proposals when they're drunk, right? And then afterwards, they've got to work out, is that actually meaningful and real to me? And maybe it isn't, right? So now I've got to like backpedal from it. Much better to be slow on the entry, and when actually something like that comes up, you've got a more considered and real position. You know, the right guy doesn't become the wrong guy because you take it slow. The right guy tends to want to take it slow or be okay with it because he's calibrated to you and also gets that there's something precious here. So there's actually something on the line for him, right? You want there to be something on the line for him. You want him to want the job and maybe not know whether he's got the right to have that job yet, right? Much better than you're deciding that he should want the job, but you actually haven't got the evidence to back that up. You haven't got him saying that he wants that. You haven't got the consistency over time. Now, there's one type of guy I just want to distinguish here because I know this comes up for several of you either now or in the past, and that's the guy who's into it really quick, right? He's kind of all over there with you. He's like, wow, you're amazing. You're the solution to my problem. I've been waiting for you my whole life. I'm so in love with you. You're so amazing. Oh my gosh, it would be so heartbreaking for me if this downshifted. He probably wouldn't say downshifted. That's like Jack kind of phrase, but he'd probably say, wow, it'd be so hard for me if we weren't together. Like, oh my gosh. And maybe part of you realizes this guy is not got his boots on the ground, right? This guy is not in sober grounded reality. Now, that can be okay because there can be something dreamy and romantic about falling for someone. But whether that guy is going to be showing up for you in another 3 or 6 months, that is a very different question, right? Anyone can want the job when they are high on romantic infatuation, then they are in the early stages of getting to know you. You guys haven't really had a conflict. You haven't really seen the other person. I hope the wind isn't getting too much up here for us. You haven't really seen each other at each other's worst, right? Part of love is loving on the light and the dark. And you often don't see the dark in week 1, month 1, maybe even the first 3 months. Sometimes it can, you can be in this kind of falling in love stage for months and months and months. And then eventually, boom, there's the wake up and you're like, who is this? Where's this monster come from? Right? Where's this person that actually doesn't see everything the same way that me? Maybe it's this person that, has different values that I haven't been aware of. Where's this person that doesn't want to take out the trash? They seem to used to want to do that all the time, right? Just the sobriety of the day-to-day, the bread and butter of life can come into focus. So that kind of guy, rightfully, sometimes you're wondering, should I really trust what he's saying? And part of you wants to because it's so romantic that this guy is like all into you. But it's almost like you're having to hold down the trustworthy masculine in the connection because his trustworthy masculine is kind of not online right now. Right? He's kind of high on his own supply. And we don't need to make him wrong for that. It's very human. We've all been there. You sometimes have to be around the block a few times to learn, okay, I could be high right now, so I'm going to tread gently. But that takes a certain kind of maturity. And I'm not talking to him right now, I'm talking to you. And so in talking to you, I want to make sure that if you're having that experience, like, I don't know if I can trust him. Is he really that into this? Time is your friend. If you take nothing from this video, just remember this. Time is your friend. Time will tell, right? If he can still do that after 18 months, you've probably got a guy that's really worthy of your consideration. Even if you can do that after 6 to 9 months, he's probably worthy of your consideration. But for the moment, there's no jury verdict to return. We're not actually putting the jury into session yet. We're at a different stage in the trial. We're still in pre-trial, right? So we don't need to come to verdicts and conclusions. Time's your friend, time will tell. Right now, I'm just taking it in. I'm enjoying it. Do I want to go on the next date? That is so flattering that you think of me that way. Thank you so much. But I'm not drawing a bigger conclusion from it. I'm just taking it as this is an in-the-moment appreciation from a guy that might be high, a guy that might just be romantically infatuated. And let's just put another dose of Jack sobriety into the mix because, again, I've coached a lot in this territory. These guys that are really into it really quickly, the majority of times it doesn't come off. It doesn't stay the distance from what I've seen. And actually, not only that, sometimes it goes from being, oh my gosh, you're amazing, to where did that guy go? Hello? Aren't I still amazing to you? Haven't you just been kind of laying it on really thick for the last several weeks? And then sometimes, boom, he's done. Now, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm just saying that's real. I've seen it. I've seen the hurt. I've seen the confusion. I've seen people that have that. And months later, they're still trying to make sense of it, right? 2 things. 1, sometimes in life, we don't have to make sense of things. Now, that can be really difficult because, our mind wants to be able to make sense of them. There is a kind of freedom when you don't always need to make rational sense of everything, right? If the rational explanation is available, great, take it. And if it's not, maybe sometimes it's okay just to see, you know what? He thought he was into it, and clearly, through his actions, because now he's disappeared or now he's significantly downshifted, he actually wasn't into it in the way that he thought, or he was into it in that moment, right? And then actually longer term he wasn't. So maybe he was true in the moment, but he wasn't kind of true over time, right? They're almost different facets of something being true. So learning how to be with that will benefit you. Now, there may actually be an explanation, which is just, he had a different kind of investment strategy, that his investment strategy is he's kind of all in until he's not. And that can be really confusing, particularly if that's not your investment strategy. It could be any of the things that I've mentioned in this video that actually he would have a difficult time articulating to you with clarity what actually went on for him, right? Sometimes we have to just be with, he might give you the best explanation he can, and what happens in this situation is, and this is just human, and it's, reduction of dissonance, reduction of cognitive dissonance. For any of us who study psychology, that's kind of psychology 101, right? When there's 2 kind of competing ideas, we sometimes start to distort reality to kind of bring them into closer alignment so that we can not feel guilty and kind of make sense of things ourselves and be with them, right? So this is where rationalization, which is often a subtle form of defense, comes in. So he might say, I didn't like that you kept your ex-boyfriend in your life, or when we're hanging out with your friends, it didn't really work for me, or you were too communicative, or you were under communicative. Now there might be some feedback in here, but I just want you to take it with a big grain of salt, right? Which is that he's going to be looking, and this is, by the way, as if he's even available to offer you an explanation. Sometimes, honestly, this guy drops off when he's so into it, and you don't really hear about it at all. So you don't actually get that kind of debrief. And part of your freedom is, I can get closure on my side. I don't necessarily need him to give me closure because I can see what's actually happened here. He was into it, he's now not, he's revealed himself to me. I don't even need to make that malicious. I might feel some anger and some hurt and disappointment. I do want to metabolize those things. But actually, the truth has outed, he has revealed himself, or it's been revealed what is in this connection, and that's what I need to get to. And so all I'm saying is he could give you an explanation, but how scientific would that really be? Is he going to use phrases like unconscious projection, unconscious attraction, romantic infatuation, dissolution of ego, right? So I was super merged with you and I just felt this expanded love I haven't felt in a long time. How able are we to do that in observation of another, let alone ourselves, right? And we know that we have all sorts of self-serving biases that make it hard to fully see ourselves. So I'm just saying it might feel easier for you to have that conversation because it might create closure. Closure is a good thing. So if that conversation is available, great. But also just what you might hear might not be actually as true as what you, through even just looking at videos like this, might be able to discern that he actually can't discern himself, So don't always need him to tell you what's going on. Don't always believe it. The actions speak louder than words in lots of these instances. And he might overemphasize a particular thing because it's like a convenient hook to hang it on. I'll give you another example. I've employed a lot of people in my life, right? Sometimes you employ people, it goes great. Sometimes you employ people and it doesn't. And you might have to let them go. And I've had these experiences of letting people go, firing people. It's not one of my favorite things to do at all, right? Keeps me up at night, certainly in the past. Lots of how's the right way to do this? I don't want to hurt this person unduly. Now, you're going to come up with a reason often for letting them go, right? Our budget's changed. We no longer need this role. You haven't been punctual. And sometimes that can all be true, but it's sort of like partial truths, right? There might just be a bigger truth, which is it just doesn't vibe. It just doesn't, I don't intuit, particularly if I'm a more intuitive person. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem like you're a great fit. And we could try and double click on that, but I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily get you closer to the truth. Sometimes in a relationship, it just doesn't work out. And that can be particularly hard if you've been with this kind of guy who's like, wow, you're amazing, and now you seem like you're nothing to him. The fact was he wasn't really in his truth when he was saying, wow, you're amazing. I mean, it might be, wow, you are amazing. That might be true, but it might not be that it was actually true to the wholeness of his experience. Like he was kind of high at the time when he said it. So you then start to see these things more in context. So does he want the job? That can be revealed to you over time. You take it slow, you stay sober, you stay grounded, you get reflection from a coach or a therapist or a friend. Hey, I'm starting to get really into this guy and he hasn't declared anything of his hand to me. Or I'm starting to really fantasize and futurize and I'm getting ahead of myself. Can you help slow me down, right? So you help other people be your sobriety checks if you know that you have this tendency towards premature relationship. I have people tell me I'm in a relationship and I'm like, okay, how's it going? And they're like, well, I haven't met him yet. I'm not joking. I've had that a lot of times in people that write to me questions, or we've been communicating every day online, but we haven't gotten to meet in person, right? So we're not looking to do relationship ahead of the actual appropriateness of where the connection's at. And that's a skill that you've got to learn over time, and you might get it completely wrong. You might keep falling off the horse. That's fine. Life is not defined by how many times we get knocked down, right? It's defined by how many times we get up. And in this situation, how many times can you sober up? Sober's the new sexy, right? So does he want the job? He can tell you that he wants the job, but you've got to be also the arbiter of that. You get to determine, is it true when he says he wants the job? Now, he may not use that exact language, but when he says, hey, babe, I want to show up for you, or hey, babe, I want to be your person, or hey, babe, I want to take care of you, or hey, babe, I really love you and I want you to be my person, I want to be exclusive with you. Cool, okay. Let it be shown. Let it be shown. And I'm not saying be cynical. I'm actually saying have as few beliefs as possible. Not that he's not your guy, not that he is your guy. Certainly, if you have a tendency to imagine guys that are your guy that are not, it might serve you to be in the not. But if you can just do the neutral, I'm just observing, I'm just noticing. I'm just getting with the program, I'm taking my time, I'm chilling out. No need to push, no need to make it something it's not. Life's my friend, time's on my side, and time will tell. Now, if this has been helpful to you, I want to invite you to download, it's going to be the first link beneath this video, my He's Your Guy checklist, because this is point number 1 on the checklist. I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak preview, but this is one of 9 points. 9 points that you can kind of run a guy through as your own sobriety check, your own reality filter to notice, is this a guy that meets these conditions? I can't tell you if he's your guy, but I can tell you if he's not meeting all or near all of these conditions, the chances that he is your guy, slim to none. right? So again, I'm giving you what is, it's what we call sufficient, not necessary. There's sufficient conditions. Sorry, I got that wrong around. Necessary, not sufficient. They're necessary conditions for someone to be your guy, but in themselves, they're not sufficient. There's other information, there's your intuition, there's definitely time being on your side. But click that link, download it, will help you. I've had really good feedback from this. It will only probably take you 15, 20 minutes to get through the whole thing. And if you've got a guy right now that you're not sure about, why not just let me help you? It's completely free. So click that link, download the He's Your Guy checklist. And as always, questions and comments below this video. I look forward to seeing what your experiences are, and I hope I've been of service to you today. My name's Jack. Thanks for being here.